Organizations of all sizes are devoting increased resources towards sustainability efforts. Environmental, social, and governance, or ESG initiatives, are taking hold from the C-suite to the end user. Now, what's driving this surge in interest? Well, research shows sustainability is just good for business, but the perception has outpaced reality as far as ESG progress so far. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this on-demand webinar brought to you by Schneider Electric. My name is Jim Malone. I'm a senior content strategist with CIO Marketing Services, and we're delighted you can be with us. Now, before we dive in, I have just a couple of housekeeping items to help you get the most out of this session. We're coming to you on demand. We can't take your questions in real time, but we still want to hear from you. Just use the Ask a Question widget on your player, and we'll get your question. You hear back from us in just a couple of business days. And of course, I want to point out there's lots more assets on this topic from our sponsor in the additional resources section of your player. You'll find lots of great resources that you can download and share with clients, colleagues, prospects, etc. So we encourage you to do so. And finally, a big thanks to our sponsor, Schneider Electric, for making today's event possible. Got a lot of great information to cover today, so let's get started right away. And to do that, I'm going to pass the microphone to your moderator for this session, Roseanne Brusco with Schneider Electric. Roseanne, over to you.
Thanks, Jim. I'm Roseanne Brusco. I'm the Marketing Program Manager at Schneider Electric within the Secure Power Division, and I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm joined by Kelly Morgan of 451 Research and Allison Matt, also of Schneider Electric today. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've been with Schneider for 11 years now, and probably the last 6 or 7 years, I've been focusing on distributed IT programs and more recently on edge computing initiatives within our organization. Prior to my work with Schneider Electric, I also worked for 2 different electric utilities within the Boston area, helping to promote energy efficiency programs and also helping enterprise organizations implement energy efficiency programs within their organizations. So with that, I did want to also say hello to Kelly Morgan. Kelly is the research director from 451 Research. So Kelly, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so I head up the data center team at 451 Research, and I've been with the company about 12 years. We're part of S&P at 451 Research. But my team covers data centers around the world. We look at supply and demand, and then we also do surveys of enterprises quarterly to ask kind of what they're doing with their data centers.
Great. Okay, and Allison. Allison is my colleague over at Schneider Electric. So Allison, Matt, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Allison Matt. I've been with Schneider Electric for 7 years, and I'm currently the Edge Initiative Program Manager. Before this, I worked as an environmental specialist in the sustainability team within Secure Power, as well under Schneider Electric. And the team's role was really to conduct full life cycle assessments, ensure our offers were eco-designed, compliant, and had end-of-life instructions.
Fantastic. So without further ado, I did want to actually dive right into the topic for today. So Kelly, you were the research director responsible for all the work that we did with your organization earlier this year. Can you give us a little bit of background on the details of the research itself, and then some of the top line findings that your organization had?
Sure. Well, as you can see from the 2 graphs, we actually did a survey earlier this year of over 1,000 enterprise respondents. It was 1,150 from 12 different countries and about 20 different industries, wondering about their core and distributed IT, in particular distributed, but asking about the sustainability programs they have for both, whether they have them and what they're thinking about.
Great. Okay. And what were some of the top line findings that you found from within the research from all of these organizations?
Sure. Yes. Well, we actually were hoping to make a maturity curve to kind of take people's responses and work out where they were along their journey in sustainability. So we kind of worked out 4 different steps along the way. So we had leaders who we considered having pretty much comprehensive sustainability programs for both their core and distributed IT. Then the more advanced folks we had, so just under leaders, they had some kind of program for both core and distributed, maybe not as comprehensive, but something in the works. And then we had limited folks where they had something for one or the other, but not both. And then we had our starters who were not focused on sustainability, but maybe have some efficiency programs in the works, or they're starting to think about this. So we categorized the four. And I think one of the interesting sort of things from this was we created our sense of a maturity model, which you can kind of see there in the pie chart, right? Which was kind of roughly distributed, kind of as we expected. There were fewer leaders, but actually more leaders than we thought there would be. But what was interesting was, as we go to the next slide, so we had created our model based on their responses to the survey throughout the survey and what kinds of programs they said they had. But we also asked them to rank themselves and their firms and whether they thought they were leaders based on these criteria or not. And when we compared them, we found actually, as you can see from the second pie chart, that folks tended to consider themselves maybe farther along than we thought they were. So, there were more leaders and definitely more of the advanced folks and fewer starters by their own definition. And so, there might be a bit of an action gap or just maybe a lack of understanding of the potential sort of comprehensiveness of a program, which we found kind of interesting and might give us some ideas of, how things can be improved going forward, or, maybe people just need more information about the things they could add to their program. Then on the next slide, we were wondering, why sustainability? What's brought you to this? And the number one response was business value, right? Getting increased revenue or maybe reducing costs, just in general, improving the business value. So that was clear for everybody. But number two was kind of overall sustainability and sort of social responsibility goals, which was quite interesting. And then number three was long-term operational resiliency. So just understanding, that things could be shifting here long-term, and we want to do the best we can, as many firms were saying, just to kind of stay on top of this. And then finally, we were asking, at least, we asked a lot of other questions, but I think the last one I'll bring up here were some of the obstacles that folks face. So I think what was interesting here is that for the advanced and the leaders, their main obstacles were a lack of data, which makes sense. Perhaps they have the more advanced programs. They're in the middle of trying to see how their programs are impacting things. Are they actually improving their sustainability? And so data becomes really important, and it can be quite challenging to get good data. And then the other thing that people, especially the starters and the early folks, had issues with was a lack of staff. And pretty much everyone had this problem, but especially those folks just starting out. And then, everyone also kind of noted problems with the technology, or at least hopes that they could perhaps solve a lot of their issues with technology. And so they're hoping for some improvements, maybe some innovation. And we saw that as actually quite interesting for vendors. There might be a bit of an information gap where there could be more available, maybe more innovation happening that people aren't aware of yet. So there's perhaps some room for education as well as a result of that one.
Super. Okay. Thanks so much for that great summary. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was, I noticed on your slide with respect to the drivers and business value popped up to the top. I'm actually, that's actually something I would expect from enterprise organizations. So were there any actual surprises that you noticed in the data and the results?
Well, yeah, actually, that's a great question. So we were quite surprised. I think going into this, we expected many fewer leaders. We thought firms would focus their sustainability efforts on their core data centers and not so much on distributed infrastructure, because we thought, you know, that's out in the boonies, you know, maybe, who knows, maybe that's just not on people's radar yet. So we thought there would be fewer leaders that had programs for both. And we were surprised that there were actually most firms were doing something for both. So folks are really looking at this holistically. They may be more advanced with one or the other, but a surprising number of folks were actually doing both. So we thought that was actually quite impressive, and people were a little further along than we thought in that sense. I think one of the other surprises was referring to that business value slide. When we were asking people what was driving this, I think we first thought that government regulation or maybe the UN climate initiatives, you know, maybe investors or public opinion would be really important in driving this, because you hear about all of those things. But it was interesting that it's business value and then this general corporate responsibility that people mainly chose. So, yeah.
I would probably agree with you on that. Fantastic. Okay, and what about the maturity levels that you mentioned, those different, the way that you categorized everybody? How did those maturity levels, how did the maturity vary? Were there any, along any particular lines that they differed from one to the next?
Yes, actually, that's a great point. So again, we kind of expected that the maturity levels would vary by country or maybe by region. And we found that actually they didn't, that even across Asia, US, Europe, and we thought perhaps Europe would be more advanced, they were pretty similar. Most enterprises were certainly working on this, and they had similar levels of programs in place for the different countries, but where it varied enormously was by company size, which I suppose is not too surprising, but it was definitely interesting that the smaller firms tended to be the ones just starting out, and the bigger firms were much more advanced and had programs in place in a much more kind of cohesive way. So that was the main variance.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. And now, Allison, in your work with Schneider and your dealings with customers, what were some of the experiences that you had as an organization with customers when it came to sustainability programs?
Great question. So like Kelly mentioned, we're also seeing different levels of maturity throughout our customers and different levels of support needed. So we're supporting our customers on setting the scope and sustainability targets, but we're also having customers asking very detailed environmental data questions, spanning from different carbon scope emissions to greenhouse gases or water eutrophication. And a lot of the customers are asking for energy efficiency data and many more. So it's actually very reflective of what Kelly's report has shown.
Okay, and what are some of the ways that Schneider Electric can actually support enterprises along their sustainability journey?
So Schneider Electric's mission is really to continue to accelerate our commitment to sustainability, leading ESG by example in our own ecosystem, and become the digital partner for sustainability and efficiency for our customers. And we do that in 4 ways. So we start with our solutions. Our solutions need to deliver sustainability performance by design through a Green Premium program. And the program is really there to ensure our solutions deliver customer value sustainable performance. And our Green Premium solutions comply with rigorous regulations, have full life cycle assessments, as well as circular performance attributes to optimize cost of ownership, carbon impact, and deliver peace of mind for our customers. And then another way we support our customers is through our DSIM portfolio. And that allows for advanced remote monitoring, predictive maintenance, and data-driven recommendations to optimize efficiency and resiliency for our customers, data centers, and distributed IT infrastructure. And the third way we support our customers is through an integrated ecosystem of partners. And they're there to support the deployment of managed IT solutions at the edge, And we recognize our partners who embrace sustainability via our Sustainability Impact Awards. That means improved collaborations among our colleagues and customers to deploy the latest technology solutions. And then lastly, we have our own Schneider Electric consultants that address customer challenges through setting a sustainability strategy, measuring sustainability ROI, investing in clean energy and renewable energy, and maintain our customers' competitive edge.
Oh, okay, great. All right, and you mentioned that the customers are asking some pretty detailed questions there. Are there any specific questions around the data that they're asking you for? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, so I can name two. So one of the challenges our customers have is to calculate their carbon footprint. There are many ways to calculate carbon footprint at the moment and no true industry standard. So having clear methodology that can be used across all of our customers' solutions is essential to understanding how we can help them reduce their footprint. And then another challenge that we're seeing our customers face is, as technology is evolving, we're seeing an evolution towards a hybrid model. So cloud companies are moving towards the edge, and we're seeing edge companies moving towards the cloud. And so as compute increases, energy usage increases. So visibility on energy usage is really critical to ensure efficiency and resiliency, and therefore sustainability.
Okay, great. All right, and Kelly, another last question for you. I know on one of your slides you mentioned there was a data point about 40% of respondents are actually awaiting certain technology advancements. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, we did ask a little more detail on kind of what firms were looking for from products and from vendors. And so from products, when we asked what firms were looking for from their equipment, what was interesting, I think, was that the leaders in advanced, so the folks that were a little more advanced in their maturity, their number one requirement from a product was energy efficiency. That was the first thing they were looking for. And number two was reliability. Whereas for the firms that were kind of just getting started in this, the limited folks and the starters, it was the reverse. So they were looking for reliability first and then energy efficient number two. But both of those I thought were kind of quite interesting, especially the energy efficiency becoming so important. The other thing was we asked kind of what should vendors offer? And the first thing that kind of everyone wanted was solutions. They wanted solutions to improve energy efficiency, and they were looking for vendors to offer that. Number two were environmental kind of data packages or data information on the products themselves. And I think that's a good sign. You know, people are starting to head to maybe scope 2, scope 3, you know, for working out what these different impacts are. So they're looking for a lot more data, both on the kind of actual product and how much it gives off, you know, as it's being used, but also what happened when it was being constructed or built or made. And then the number three thing that people wanted were tools, you know, how to manage this data from each of these devices, but just generally more tools and information on how to manage all this.
Okay, great. All right. Super. So I think with that, we're maybe just ready to summarize and highlight a few key takeaways from our discussion today. So I would say probably the biggest thing that I learned was making that perception around sustainability more of a reality, where there is some kind of gap there. And I could probably highlight 3 different elements or actions where enterprises could benefit. So I would say first is maybe starting with the end in mind. So building that sustainability in from the design phase, not necessarily waiting until later in the life cycle and leave that to the O&M team at a point that's maybe a little too late for you to optimize for your organization. I would say second, we heard a lot about data, obtaining the data that you need. There are tools and there are plenty of resources out there for enterprise to take advantage of. And then finally, that need to ask for help. Not everybody has all of this skilled staff that knows about energy efficiency within their own organizations, but there are consultants, and there are partners out there who do. So with that, I would say that Schneider Electric is available to help enterprises wherever they are along their own maturity curve when it comes to sustainability and helping them reach their goals. So, you know, Allison actually mentioned several different areas: the green premium products, the EcoStruxure IT DSIM portfolio, as well as our partner network and our consultants. We're just here to help you along the way and wherever your particular journey leads you when it comes to sustainability. So with that, I will probably turn it back over to Jim for some closing statements. So thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Roseanne. And with that, we are at the end of our time for this session. I want to give a big thanks to our experts, Kelly Morgan with 451 Research, Allison Matt with Schneider Electric, and our host, Roseanne Brusco, also with Schneider Electric. Great insights and information, everyone. Thank you so much. And of course, a big thanks to everyone who tuned in. If you have questions, reactions, or comments, just use the Ask a Question widget on your player. We'll get back to you in just a couple of business days. And of course, a reminder for additional information on the topic, please check out the resources section of your player. There you'll be able to download a copy of the 451 research report that our speakers spoke to today, along with a host of other links and great resources from our sponsor, Schneider Electric. And with that, we are at the end of our time. And for Schneider Electric, 451 Research, and CIO Content Marketing Services, Jim Malone saying, thanks everyone for tuning in.